Hello and welcome to another rambling video, and in this video we're going to take a step back and kind of look at the very basic fundamentals of flight, specifically in a jet aircraft. We'll do helicopters and propeller planes later, but for now we have an F-5 here, which is an American jet that appeared in the movie Top Gun. They called it the MiG-28 in that movie, but I assure you it is an F-5, and we're gonna have a look at it. So first of all, how does a plane get into the air? Well, this is kind of a cross-section of a wing, and if you look at the F-5's wing, you can see it has the same basic shape here that we're looking at. So what happens is air traveling under the wing has less distance to go. It's not being forced around anything. It's able to just flow straight smoothly. So what happens is the air under the wing creates a higher pressure system than the air over the wing that has to move up and then over. So you have less pressure on top of the wing than you have on the bottom. And that change in pressure allows the aircraft to rise. And if you look at the F-5, you can see the entire plane is kind of shaped like a wing. The bottom of the plane is very flat, and the top of the plane kind of bulges. And what that does is it allows the body of the plane to generate lift. See from the front there, the bottom is very flat, and the top of the plane isn't. So the entire fuselage, wings, all kind of generate lift together. Now jets, I think everyone can look at a propeller-driven aircraft and look at the blades and kind of imagine a fan sitting on the desktop. Propellers don't work exactly like fans, but the principle is very similar. It pulls air, and the action of the propeller pulling the air pushes the plane forward. But how does a jet engine work? And you'd be surprised how many people don't actually know. So for a jet engine to work, a few things have to be happening. First of all, you need air coming in. And here we can see that hole. You got one on each side. That hole is where air enters the jet engine. And when the air gets here into the center of the engine, what happens is it gets heated up. And when air gets hotter, it expands. And the expanded air comes out of the back of the jet. So you've got, say, thin air coming in through the intake and getting expanded by heat. Because when you apply heat to anything, it expands. And the force of the expanded air comes out of the back. So that's really what's happening inside the jet. Air getting sucked in, blown up, and pushed out. So we can hop inside and have a look at a few of the controls here. There are a few of the instruments here. We're not going to go over everything, but I'm happy that my mouse cursor works inside the aircraft. It doesn't work outside. DCS doesn't allow for the mouse to work in external view as far as I can tell. But here we've got a compass. And down here, all of these gauges kind of have to do, or sorry, not these ones, but all of these ones kind of have to do with the engines. We have two engines on this aircraft, so you can see they mirror each other. And if I, not this one, this is fuel, but, and this is fuel flow, we'll get to that too. But if I put the throttle up, you can see they all start to change. And down here we've got fuel flow and fuel quantity. Fuel quantity works the same way as it would in a car. And you've got two fuel tanks there, a left tank and a right tank. And this switch that I flipped down here, I just told the aircraft that the left tank is lower than the right tank. So it will start using the right tank first until they balance out and then burn down. And the fuel flow here, so if I turn the engine up again, it increases. And it just tells you how much fuel you're using. I don't want the plane to move. I gotta hold the brakes down there. If we look over here onto the other side, these instruments tell us kind of what the plane is doing. So you've got this one up here. This tells us in knots how fast we're going. And this little arrow here and this little window kind of tells us our Mach speed. So how fast we're going relative to the speed of sound. So 1, so this is 0.5, 0.6. When that scrolls up to 1, then we know we're traveling Mach, the speed of sound. This is a little artificial horizon, so you can see these two notches kind of represent the wings. And when the plane's flying and it starts rolling around, the ball is kind of free floating in there. And when the plane moves, it will reflect the orientation of the plane based on the horizon on this instrument. And when we're in the air, we'll see that, and it'll make a little more sense maybe. Here's the altimeter. That's pretty simple. The needle just goes around, and here it just gives you digits. So right now we're sitting on the runway, but we're 4,000 or 5,450 feet above sea level, because the runway is not sitting at sea level. And the way that altimeters work in aircraft is they measure the air pressure. So the closer you are to sea level, the higher the air pressure is, because there's more air stacked on top of you, just in the atmosphere. And the closer you are, or the higher you are, the less air pressure there is. But of course, air pressure changes. Air pressure changes based on the weather. So if it's rainy, there's lots of clouds, you'll be in a higher pressure system. So what you can do then is, down here where you see 2992, that can be adjusted to compensate. So before you take off in a plane, you're gonna figure out what you need to set this to, and that will change the base level of the altimeter to compensate for the air pressure outside that day. And here we have just a backup of this artificial horizon. And down here in the corner, we have an instrument that tells us first of all, if we're climbing or descending. So if the arrow is pointing up, we're climbing. If the arrow is pointing down, we're descending. And how many feet per minute we're climbing. So if the arrow is pointing here, we're climbing at 1,000 feet per minute, 2,000 feet per minute, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, etc., etc. And that will be reflected here on the altimeter. So if you get an instruction to climb from air traffic control, you get an instruction to climb at 1,000 feet per second or whatever, or 1,000 feet per minute. They probably wouldn't give you an instruction to climb at 1,000 feet per second. But at 1,000 feet per minute, then you can use this instrument to measure how fast you're climbing. And this one here, this instrument here, actually, it's for navigation. So if we come down here, we're able to select a channel code. And if we put that at 77, so every airbase, more or less, has a special code. The one we're sitting at now is 77. So if I input 77 in there, this instrument, you see before it was kind of spinning around. If I click that off, you see how it's just spinning, the arrow is just spinning, and here we have a little red and white bar over where it says miles. That means that it can't find a station. So those stations work by radio signals from the ground. So there's going to be something sitting on the ground sending out a radio signal on a specific channel. So we set the channel here to 77, and this is the little radio station here at this airfield, and you can see it right there. At least I think that's it. Because if you look down here, this arrow points straight at it. And it tells us here how far away is it. So it's less than a mile, and the arrow's pointing there, and it looks like a little kind of a building with a witch's hat on it. And if you go to an airport in real life, you'll see something like that. Perhaps not every airport has one, but especially smaller municipal airports might not have one. Some of them do, but they're used for navigation purposes, and they don't work on the same frequencies as military aircraft, but fundamentally they work the same way, for our purposes here anyways. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take off. And I'm just setting up the aircraft here. I'm putting my flaps down. And you can see the flaps here. So look at the wing. See, we can put the flaps down, which causes the aircraft to generate even more lift in the back and from the front. And that will help us take off at a lower speed. Just gonna turn off the beeping from the navigation system. Okay. So, we've got our flaps down. I'm just gonna push the throttle forward. You can see all the engine controls here dancing to life. The oil pressure, the fuel flow has gone way up. And our speed is increasing. And when I pull back on the stick, you're going to see this artificial horizon reflect that I'm climbing. And there we go, we're in the air. You see how it changed. So now I'm going to put my wheels up. the gear. And there we go. So you can see already things have started to change. Our altimeter, this is hard to do and fly at the same time. Our altimeter is increasing, and our rate of climb, it's showing us we're climbing at about 4,000 feet. I'm kind of flying with my left hand here so I can use the mouse at the same time. Now we're climbing at over 6,000 feet. Let me just pull back on the throttle a bit. Our speed has increased to almost 4,000 knots, Mach 0.7. Try to keep it zoomed in. You can see the artificial horizon now here. So when I roll the plane upside down, it puts everything upside down. When I climb, when I pull back on the stick to climb, it goes up and it shows you in degrees. So this is 10 degrees of climb, 20 degrees of climb, 30 degrees of climb right there, and so on, so forth. And diving works much the same way. 10 degrees of dive, 20 degrees, etc., etc. And down here you can see our altitude. We're now at almost 15,000 feet. And here, our arrow, you look at the arrow on the outside. Our arrow is pointing back towards where we took off from, and it says we're now almost 17 miles away. So, if we turn around, let's turn here, and we want to bring this arrow on the outside up to the top, then we should see the airfield right in front of us again. Watch it swing around. Here's the arrow here. And as soon as it gets to here, the airfield should be right in front of us. And there it is. That's where we took off from. And like I said, there, you know, not every, but many airfields have a code like that you can put in. And it will just point you towards the target like that and tell you how far away it is. And civilian aircraft have a very similar system. It's not quite the same, but so right now, if you look at our fuel, you can see the two tanks are almost balanced out. They're pretty close to balanced out. This particular aircraft, and you know, high performance fighter aircraft in general, use a lot of fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plane into full afterburner, and you just watch that fuel get sucked down. You can actually see the needle going in real time. See it dropping. That's how fast this plane eats fuel. And if we look over here, we've actually broken the sound barrier. We're above we're above Mach 1. And if we come outside the aircraft, it's silent. But of course behind the aircraft, you can still hear everything. So what I'm going to do now is fly until we're roughly 10 miles from the airfield, and then turn around and land. So right now we're at 8, 9, 10 miles. And now we'll do a loop under, and the airfield should pop up right in front of us. There it is. We're not quite centered on it. This is kind of a sloppy landing, but I think the plane's gonna make some angry noises here. We might stall it a bit. Nope, we're okay. There's the runway right there. So I've put our wheels back down and the flaps set for low for landing. Lower speed, higher lift. And we're aiming right for those skid marks there. And here we are on the ground. And I came in a little fast. I hit the ground a little fast. It was gentle, but I was coming in a bit fast. And I'm pretty sure I popped a tire there. Yeah. The left tire blew. And, I mean, it was a gentle enough landing. The reason it blew was because I was going 250 knots when my wheels hit the ground. And when the wheel is spinning that fast, it heats up and it can fail. So I should have come in a bit slower. That was kind of a messy approach. But regardless, landed safely. And that's it for this video.